Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 587 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our sixth book just came out. It's called I'm So Beautiful, It's Ridiculous: Unleashing and Promoting Strength, Self-Worth, and Real Sisterhood. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, my connection to archaeological sites in the Middle East is that my father is one of the archaeologists who uncovered Masada in Israel, which is a very famous story of how the Jewish people would actually rather kill themselves than be slaves to the Romans or anybody who tries to conquer them. So if you haven't read the stories of Masada, I would highly encourage that you do some research, look that up, and read through it in order to really understand the pride that the Jewish people have over their heritage. And speaking of Middle East archaeology, let's talk to our next guest. A professional polymath, Michal Morrison, has spent her career bridging the past and present, business and impact. Holding degrees in history and English and a graduate degree in theology, her academic foundation launched her into 10 years in archaeological and historical research across the Middle East and the Mediterranean. She has worked for universities, environmental agencies, and even a royal family on heritage protection projects and field research in Greece, Italy, the UAE, Turkey, Ireland, and the Americas. Now, a life-changing accident served as a catalyst for significant career change for Michal, and in 2020, she founded her skincare company. It's called Michal Morrison Inc., where she is proud to partner with global leaders from the field of biotechnology, longevity, and beauty. And Michal is an award-winning biomimetic skincare brand featuring a patented biotech breakthrough that was based in 25 years of research in regenerative medicine and also stem cell science. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury, Michal believes that businesses should be catalysts for social change. She's dedicated not only to driving scientific innovation in the beauty industry, but also to building a sustainably minded brand that prioritizes accessibility. She launched her brand social impact initiative, where they have partnered with One Mind, the Trevor Project, and the COPE program in support of health equity within Indigenous communities. Welcome to the show, Michal.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. I love talking to entrepreneurs like you and kind of like me. You're a Swiss Army knife. You can pretty much put me in any situation, and I'll figure out a way to move this movement forward. And so I appreciate being with you today. Now, you decided for your undergraduate experience that you were going to be going to Texas A&M. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, why did you choose Texas A&M?
So I was born in Austin, born in Texas, and I grew up in Arizona. And I wanted to come back to Texas. My mother's side of the family is from here, and there's a passion in Texas for being a Texan that was attractive to me. And I heard about A&M through the grapevine of other family connections in Texas who all had a lot of admiration for the university. And when I visited, it was such a community-based college that it was very attractive to me. I'd never seen anything like that before. And then I was fortunate. My brother went to A&M a couple years ahead of me. And so I had 3 years on campus with him, which I don't know how many people can say that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly very passionate about their
Yes.
school. There's no question about it. I've never seen passion like the alumni of Texas A&M. Uh,
Internationally renowned. Yeah,
yeah, especially around their football team. That's a whole experience in itself.
it is.
Now, your academic journey began in history, English, and theology. So I'm wondering what drew you to those particular fields, and then how did that curiosity evolve into archaeological work all across the globe?
So I was really fortunate. I grew up in a family of readers and academics. So my father has a doctorate from the same place that I went to seminary.
Mhm.
And my mother was a teacher, has her master's degree. And so I was raised in an environment that really cultivated knowledge and the pursuit of curiosity. I'm really grateful for that. So I think everybody in my family actually has studied English at some point and history.
Mhm.
And I started off in poli sci and it felt too conceptual to me. I wanted to know more about the human experience. And so I switched my first year and started off in English, and then I added history. And then I was two classes away from a third degree in anthropology. That's going to haunt me forever. I really wish I'd been able to finish that in the 4 years. But it was just a passion of mine. I spend a lot of time still reading. I read about 20 books a month or so, sometimes more than that. And never lost my passion for it. We're definitely a reading family. That's what we do every Christmas Eve, is read books together, which is really fun. But in terms of archaeology, I got an inkling that I was interested in it maybe my junior year of college.
Mm.
And I approached a professor who I knew from the anthropology department. He was going to Greece for the summer. And I said, "Would you take me on this excavation?" And he said, "It's full, sorry." And I just kept asking him. And so I learned through that experience the power of just really advocating for yourself. And eventually he said, "Yeah, you obviously really want to go. We'll make space." And they did. It was very generous. And so I got to go to Crete, that really large island in the south of Greece,
Mm.
and work on a Minoan village from the Bronze Age. And it completely changed my life. So history come to life, literally putting your hands in the dirt, is a thrill that I don't think will ever be matched in my life.
Yeah. It's really funny to me when somebody in the United States says, like, this is really old.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have no idea what really old is until you go to the Mediterranean, you go to the Middle East, you
Right.
go to places like Crete. I mean, that's really old. Okay. I'm looking at a building that's 100 years old. Okay. Like,
Right.
all right, I get it.
Mhm.
But you put everything into perspective, I guess, a little bit. But I love that you're a ferocious reader. And the other thing that I like about you too is you love to travel as well. I mean, you've worked everywhere from Greece and Italy to the UAE, even for the royal family, like I mentioned earlier. And, when I look at today's college students, many of them have never been outside of the United States. Some of them have never even left the state that they were born in. So, can you tell our audience, like, what was one of the most unexpected lessons that you learned from your time in international heritage work?
Sure. Well, I think I really learned how to handle myself in challenging situations, which is helpful across the board
Mm.
wherever you go. But then I also learned, regardless of the excavation I was working on, there's evidence that humans need and want beauty and meaning, regardless of when or where they lived.
Hmm.
Seeing, especially, I love the transition historically of something really functional like pottery, just going from something very plain to you start seeing art and intention being put into this. And the Minoans, that first excavation that I went on, they're known for very creative forms of art on their pottery.
Mm.
It's absolutely stunning. It would shock you to look at it. It's incredibly beautiful. Everybody wants life to be beautiful in addition to it being functional. And I can't help but think about, the transition that we're in as a society toward AI. Even though that's going to make things more functional, I think in some circumstances, humans will always want art. They will always want beauty. And everybody's asking the same questions about meaning. And one of the most meaningful days for me on an excavation ever, I worked at Ostia Antica, which is right outside of Rome. It used to be the port city outside of Rome. And it's an incredible place to go if you like archaeology and history and you're in Italy. Not very many people know about it, but it's enormous. And we found the grave of an infant who had been buried. And back then, so many children died that there wasn't a whole lot of pomp and circumstance put behind burying an infant because, death in childbirth was very common. But somebody had taken the time to make this one of the most beautiful graves I've ever seen. There was ceramics on the inside, there were tiles covered in art. They had been very lovingly buried. And so there was a moment of silence as it was taken up out of the ground.
Mm.
That's one of the most human moments I've ever felt because several thousand years ago, there were mourning people putting this child into the ground, the same way we were all standing around to take them back out. And everybody grieves. Everybody has times in their moment where in their lives that they're looking for meaning of why did this happen? Why am I experiencing loss? And so, regardless of where you go in history and what excavation you're working on, you are going to see evidence of people wanting the same things that they want now.
100%. Wow, that's a really touching story. Just really incredible. And it's one of the joys of being an archaeologist, is discovering those kinds of things. And, first off, I mean, going back to Masada for a second, I mean, if you go up there today, you'll find pottery littered all over the site at
It's
Masada. You can
incredible.
pick it up
Yeah.
just like you're walking around and you find a penny on the ground. I mean, you'll find pottery all over the place at Masada that you can pick up and literally take with you, which is just astounding because there's pieces of it everywhere. But also, when my father was digging up Masada, he was kind of digging up in one particular place, and suddenly he found beautiful tiles in the floor. And when you see that, that is a sign to you, just like it was with this baby who was buried, that something really important is happening here. That's the sign when you uncover that. And sure enough, as he dug and he kind of excavated that one tile, they looked at the tile, they said, "This is it." Immediately, everyone stopped working on whatever they were working on, and everybody came to that location and they said, "All right, we are digging this out, abandon everything that you're working on," because they had just found the temple. They had just found the spot where they were actually praying at Masada, and they knew that nothing was more important than that. And immediately that was the priority. So yeah, if you see like, top-notch tile, that tells you something really,
Oh,
really
it's
important is happening.
exciting.
Very
Yeah.
exciting. Like that's
Are a huge deal all of a
yeah, huge deal.
sudden when
Oh
you
yeah.
look in archaeology. Yeah,
Yep,
finding
yep.
one of those is a big deal.
That's a big deal. Very nice. Now, you've also overcome a traumatic brain injury, which was obviously a life-altering experience for you. Can you walk us through how that changed your career path clearly and even maybe your personal philosophy?
Yeah, so I had a traumatic brain injury, I guess it was almost 8.5 years ago now.
Mm,
And it was in between excavations. I was home in Austin and was in a car accident. And it's interesting. Everybody looks at brain injuries as automatic. When you see somebody get hit too hard on a football field and they check their eyes immediately for signs of a concussion. It doesn't always show up immediately, and mine showed up a week after that accident.
mm,
And so I didn't know that that could happen. And very quickly, I started to lose the ability to make new memories. And then I started losing childhood memories as well. And so for about a year, I was basically non-functional. I didn't know very much about who I was. I forgot friends and family members. I couldn't hold a conversation. I had very severe aphasia, vestibular issues. Like it really changes your life to have a severe traumatic brain injury. I was told by several neurologists that I would never recover, never hold a job again, never be able to support myself in any meaningful way again, and that they were happy to write me a note for disability that I could live off for the rest of my life.
mm.
And as anyone who has applied for disability knows, that is not a life. It's very hard to fight for disability. I applied 7 times a couple years later, had two attorneys, and was denied every time. And then I had to sue the state of Texas to win disability. Um, and I won $9,000 for a year and a half's worth of coverage. That's how much you get. So I'm very passionate about talking about disability in the United States because the realities of it are absolutely brutal. But I was able to find a doctor. I kept firing doctors, and I found a doctor who took this seriously and told me about neuroplasticity for the first time and that your brain can heal and change, and that I probably wouldn't be the exact same moving forward, but that I could regain things back. That's the first time I had heard that. It took me a year to find a doctor who would say that to me. So I went up to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. They have a sports concussion program. And if there's any students here who have had a traumatic brain injury, that is who I would recommend talking to because it took me a long time to find somebody who said, no, you can heal from a very bad brain injury. I spent years in full-time cognitive and physical therapy, and that will change you. Having to give up a career trajectory was something to grieve, and I still do, in a sense. I do miss archaeology, but it helped me learn how to be resourceful and how to be okay with making a pivot. So I was, trying to apply for jobs in tech in Austin when I made my sort of miraculous recovery and was told by multiple people, one HR manager in particular, that if I insisted on talking about disability, no one would ever hire me. And so I said to myself, I got to figure out another way. I need to be flexible with this. I think that's a position that a lot of people are finding themselves in. disabled people in particular at the moment. You have to get creative. And so 2020 rolled around, COVID hit, and it struck me as I have all this time on my hands. There are only so many online classes I can take. There's only so much bread I can make very poorly. And so I started to do research about what it would look like to get into the beauty industry. I spent about 6 months doing that. And through the grapevine of all of that work, found the first people that I wanted to hire and work with. And I was very fortunate to be introduced to a team of people who were very experienced. And so it was a huge transition. I hadn't worked in beauty before, but I had had a long interest in skin health. My mom has struggled a lot with skin cancer. And so that's where that interest came in for me. But I had to make a huge pivot. I was going to do the academic route. I was applying for PhD programs when I was in my accident. And so I never anticipated being an entrepreneur. I come from a family of business people and people very involved in the community. And so I had people to look to for inspiration. But I didn't study business, of course, history, English, and theology. You never would have anticipated making this kind of move. But I think it's proof that you can do it if you really want to.
Hmm. That's a really interesting story. I'm wondering, for the other college students who are listening right now that undoubtedly will have some unexpected challenge in their life that will derail their plans. It's not a question of if it will happen, it's just when
Yes.
it will happen in their lives. What advice would you give them about adapting with purpose, even when life throws you off course?
I am such a planner that the idea starting in college that something might not go my way, like my very carefully laid plans might not work, felt very threatening. I had existential dread over that.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated in 2012 into a very difficult economic environment. So that's one of the reasons I went directly to graduate school. Is like many people, I couldn't find a job that was going to do enough to take care of me. And so that environment said, maybe it's time for more learning. Let's just transition and do that. And I look at today's college students and the environment that they're entering, and the fact that some of the skills that they learn freshman or sophomore year, it might only carry them a couple of years. Like you are going to have to figure out something else. I'm excited about a lot of the possibilities that are brought to the table by AI, but I also already know people who have lost their jobs. And so that's some of the context that I would provide to college students that um, I know people in their 30s and 40s who've been invaluable parts of tech companies who are losing their jobs. AI is replacing some of them. The economic environment is making everything shrink. So it's stressful for everyone. So really, you are not alone. You're not alone in that. But I have had an experience that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Worst case scenario has already happened to me. My brain was always my favorite part of myself. My mind and cultivating my mind was my favorite thing about life. And so the universe could not have given me something more pointed and apt for me to learn from than losing my ability to think. That was absolutely gut-wrenching, but it taught me how to have grit. I really had to fight to recover from that. And while I miss archaeology, I'm fine now too. Like I never would have anticipated this taking this path. But there's another version of you waiting on another path, and you can like that version of yourself too. So while, the practicalities of learning to be flexible, knowing that the degree you're getting, that's laying a foundation for learning new skills that will be part of your life entering the American workforce in 2025, 2026. But also having an anchor in your life for how you feel less vulnerable in the world, whether that's a person, a hobby, a belief system, what have you, creating a sense of inner well-being independent of your job. Because that's one of the things that the TBI really taught me. You are not what you can do. You are not what you can produce. We live in a society that says that. And that's very hard to overcome mentally. And there's a lot of stress on college students who are facing graduation. But if you are worried about needing to pivot or that things will not work out the way that you expected, whether it's with your career or relationships or where you live or what have you, life will continue to surprise you, but there are really good things around the corner as well. And you can build a very happy and fulfilled life, even if you have to change your plans.
Yeah, that's great advice. I totally agree with the grit, totally agree with just being a lifelong learner. Here I am at age 50 doing my dissertation and getting a doctorate. So it's just proof that really, no matter what age you're at, I mean, as long as you're a lifelong learner, you can do these things. And I agree with you on the AI piece too. I think, we're going to have to evolve. People are going to lose their jobs, no question about that. However, I do believe that they are going to be replaced. I mean, when you think about the Industrial Revolution, I mean, at one point we were all farmers, right? And then all of that changed after the Industrial Revolution. And I think the same thing is true for AI. It's going to look a little bit different. But as long as humans continue to evolve and have ideas for new products and new services, I just think we'll be able to do it more efficiently with AI. That's all. That's the real difference there. But we'll continue to evolve. There's no question. And, speaking of, evolving, you founded the skincare brand Michal Morrison Inc. in 2020, and you mentioned your mom and what she was dealing with the skin cancer, and that seemed to inspire you to make that leap. And, listen, I mean, uh, things happen in terms of medical problems in just about every family. And cancer certainly has touched just about every family out there as well. And so you could have done a whole bunch of different things. I mean, you could have looked at curing cancer, right? And say, well, I'm going to put all of my energy into that. But you decided that biotech and beauty was kind of what your focus on, what you were going to focus on moving forward. So how did you arrive at that conclusion? I'm wondering because I'm sure the student listeners who are listening right now, they might have ideas about their own product or their own service that they want to bring to market. So I'm wondering, like, how did you fuse together biotech and beauty and decide this is the lane I'm going in?
So, beauty is really interesting because there are so many brands, thousands of brands that are launched every couple of years. But there's very little innovation in terms of ingredients. And so I knew that I was interested in skin. I was like, I think I could probably find somebody to partner with to make something really unique. And so I was introduced to Dr. Michael Kahn, who is the progenitor of all of this science. He worked for 25 years along with his team to create this molecule, beta stem 6, that activates stem cell behavior again after they've gone dormant. And it has been an incredible breakthrough in that industry, in biotech. And biotech in beauty is expanding, but it's still trying to, pick up some steam, I think. And so we've been able to bring something totally new to the industry. And most times with beauty, you're following a brand identity and not necessarily, oh, I'm looking for a skincare ingredient that's innovative. But our customers are the ones that are looking at the back of the bottle and trying to understand what ingredients are inside. They want to know why something works, and why they should spend money on it. And so, if you're thinking about getting into beauty, I would absolutely say, unless you have a very unique perspective, access to a different ingredient, maybe you're an influencer and you already have a community, there has to be buy-in there. And so Beta Stem 6 has been that for us. When I started doing this research, I didn't know Dr. Khan. That was probably 6 months after that I was introduced to him, and he was looking to get this into the hands of more people to improve their lives. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to partner with him.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly something very unique in skincare, right? Not doing what everybody else is doing, but having some unique piece to your product, I think is really, really key to success. You're not trying to just blend into hundreds, if not thousands of products. You have
Absolutely.
something unique about your product. What has been the most rewarding and maybe even the most challenging part of being a woman entrepreneur in, let's face it, a traditionally male-dominated science and business space?
Well, I've been very fortunate. All the men that I've worked with have been absolutely lovely people. So I'm
Mhm.
very fortunate for that. And there's been a lot of learning for me to do. And so I've been sort of taken under the wing by multiple people who have been very generous with their time and helping me learn the ropes around a variety of things. What I would say in terms of being a woman and being in entrepreneurship is, my mom couldn't apply for a credit card without a male family member there vouching for her in the 70s. Like until this, like I think
Not that
19.
long ago.
Yeah, very, very recent. Society is changing in terms of gender roles, and I'm really excited to see more opportunity come the way of girls and women. So the first, big consumer brands that we think about today, like Spanx and stuff like that was like 10, 15 years ago. There was a big movement of women jumping into business and entrepreneurship. Some of those women could not find another woman, not a singular woman, to be on their board. It was all men. They paved the way. And now there is a wave of women getting more involved in entrepreneurship. I'm really proud to be part of that wave. The community in Austin, especially for entrepreneurship, is incredibly welcoming and diverse. I'm really grateful for that. I think the challenge for me has been that a lot of the advice around fundraising for a company is written by men for a predominantly male audience. And so I struggled, I think, the first 2 years in particular of, do I need to present myself in a way that a man would in order to be taken seriously? How do I navigate these conversations when most of the money still is in the hands of men too? So when you're talking to male investors, that gender dynamic there, I've had some uncomfortable conversations, unfortunately, that didn't go very well. Condescension, that kind of thing. That's hard to bear as someone with a great idea, a great product. Um, and so what I would say, and I've found my way through, but finding advice, if you are a woman, of finding advice from women about business. And so that sort of fixed that for me. I have two books that I really benefited from. One is called Leapfrog, The New Revolution for Women Entrepreneurs. It's by Natalie Molina Nino. And another book called Raise Capital on Your Own Terms, How to Fund Your Business Without Selling Your Soul, which I really identify with. And
Mhm.
that's by Jenny Casson with a K. And so, really, it's been a little difficult sometimes navigating the gender dynamic because so much of it is subliminal. So much of it, people don't want to actually talk about it. And I've become very empathic and sensitive since my TBI as well. And so I can feel it when something is uncomfortable, and feel when someone maybe doesn't even have good intentions or isn't approaching an investment conversation in good faith. That has been the harder part of entrepreneurship to navigate for me.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I think that's helpful, and those resources are amazing. So I know that our students will love to pick up those books. And I also love that you're a big believer in business as a tool for social change. I think that's beautiful. I think that certainly Gen Z identifies with that because they
Mhm.
want that too. So how does your company integrate purpose with profit?
I am so excited about Gen Z for so many reasons, and their focus on companies need to do the right thing is one of
Mhm.
my favorite things about them. I
Yep.
think that's the coolest.
Hmm.
So we give money back per product sold to One Mind, and One Mind is an organization that has catalyzed, I think they've catalyzed over $1 billion for brain health research. And so it's everything from mental health to traumatic brain injuries, and dementia and that kind of thing. I know the family well. They're an absolutely wonderful family that they realized maybe 20 years ago that the resources that should exist for mental health and understanding how brains work and why diseases develop as they do, there just wasn't enough there. And so they use their position in the world to make a difference with that. So I'm really honored to know them. I absolutely love how science focused they are, which is, of course, in line with our vision as a company of being a science-based beauty company as well. And then on occasion, we've had special opportunities to give to the Trevor Project, which is close to my heart, of mental health resources for queer youth, and the COPE program, health equity and access to resources around health education is also something I'm very passionate about. And so um, when I started the company, I knew that I wanted that to be part of the model. And so I told my team from the beginning that this is a priority for me. And then also as someone with a disability, even if it's an invisible one, I knew that I wanted the brand to be more disability accessible too. And so we actually have Braille on our packaging. And that was a really fun part, a really meaningful part of putting the project together. The beauty industry is not great around accessible design. And I hope that Braille becomes the standard moving forward. I think more companies are starting to do that. But everybody should be welcome to participate if they want to.
Yeah. Well, listen, I love Gen Z for the same reasons why you love Gen Z. I think, thank goodness they're here, and it's super exciting to work with college students every day. So super fortunate for that. And you've advised some femtech companies that are focused on patient first care. Have you identified, you're a kind of an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur like I am. I could tell you look at the world the same way that I do. What are some of the gaps that you see in women's healthcare that you think that these Gen Z leaders listening right now can help to close that gap?
I'll tell you, there is nothing but opportunity
Yeah.
in women's health.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. The National Institutes of Health did not include women in medical trials until the 90s. Up until that point, the female body has been treated as just a smaller, more frail version of the male body.
Mhm.
We don't know very much at all. And so I deal with chronic illness myself as a woman, and I know a ton of other people who live with chronic pain. Endometriosis is an enormous opportunity for change. Right now, women have to have surgery instead of having something like a medication as a first form of intervention. And even then, that's not a permanent thing. But even from things that are related to health and medicine, world design, if you are an architect of any kind, we need you. Cars are not built around the female body either. Test dummies, like crash dummies, are until very recently, with one opportunity that I've seen, have all been done on something that's sized as a male. And so it's very unsafe for pregnant women to drive. I was injured by my own seatbelt as a woman because seatbelts aren't made and designed for women driving a car. Um, there's examples absolutely everywhere. But health, I know we're coming a long way. There's been a wave of femtech companies, particularly around things like menopause that people just used to sort of make jokes about. It's an enormous change in a woman's life that impacts her actual longevity. How many more years are you going to live? There's an enormous opportunity to understand what's happening there. My own primary care physician said, I need to go back to study menopause. And so she has. She got one day about menopause in medical school. One
One
day.
day.
Yeah. So, opportunities everywhere. And I think a lot of founders end up creating something from their own lived experience. They've been to the doctor, they were told, oh, you just need to lose weight. Women hear that all the time, or they hear, oh, you're just anxious. And they have an autoimmune disease, and it can take 6 to 8 years to get diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. It's 80% women who have autoimmune diseases. So it really affects so many more women than it does men. I want care for men as well, but there's really disproportionate resources being put behind things like Viagra. That I mean, that does change the quality of somebody's life, but we don't know how to cure PCOS. We don't know how to cure endometriosis, and that keeps women from having children. That's a big deal. So if you're interested in women's health, equity, around healthcare access, I mean, Black women are 8 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. There is opportunity everywhere, everywhere.
Wow, that's a beautiful answer, and you've given a whole bunch of new ideas and new directions for some of the college students who are listening right now, trying to figure out what their next steps are and what problems they can solve. You've identified a whole host of things that college students can take a look at. And I'm also interested in your mentoring of young students who are entering entrepreneurship. What are some of the common fears or hurdles these young students are facing, and how do you help them break through that?
I really love mentoring. It's so exciting to see the passion. And I would say that some people are saying, well, I'm too young to do this. Who's going to take me seriously? Um, I don't want success to be gatekept by a bunch of people who get to work at private equity firms, you know?
Mhm.
So, what I've been convinced of, mentoring at UT at the Kendra Scott Center, actually for entrepreneurship, I'm seeing people who started businesses in high school and they have been making money for 2 or 3 years already by the time they get to a program at a university. If an investor doesn't want to talk to you because you're too young, they're not the investor for you. That is, you're getting business married, is the way that I think about it if you take investment from someone. So you want things to be aligned with who you are. If you have passion and competence, you will attract the right people to you. you want the wrong people to stay away from you. So the things that I think I'm seeing people feel insecure about is this going to disqualify me from participating? No, it won't. Your age is not a factor with this. Ingenuity is the point here. And really, with different age groups, you're seeing problems that I don't see at 35. You have access to communities that I don't have access to. You might be better than I am, even as someone with 5 years of experience as an entrepreneur now. You might be better qualified than I am for the idea that you have. Just because somebody is older than you doesn't mean that they're more qualified. They might have some more years under their belt, but don't count yourself out.
Yeah, that's certainly the backbone of America, right? Is all of these entrepreneurs and small business owners that are making it happen. And there's a ton of them in Gen Z. I mean, it's filled with new ideas. And so I love that you're giving back in that way. And you are just, really helping these students come along in terms of that mentorship. I think that's really key. So if you are a college student that has a new product or service that you want to bring to market, find a mentor. I mean, that is like step number one. Find a mentor who's been there and who's done that. All too often, college students will look to other college students for advice. And if they haven't done it yet, then that's kind of, you're going to make mistakes along the way. And there's no reason for you to make those mistakes if you can just be guided by somebody who's been there and who's done that. So I love the work that you're doing at UT. I think that's fantastic. All right. So if our students who are listening right now, if they want to bring you in to speak on their college campus, I think there's a whole bunch of things you could talk about. It could be entrepreneurship, it could be disabilities, it could be, a whole bunch of different things that I can think of. Where should they go in order to connect with you?
I would love to hear from people on LinkedIn. The number of people who've reached out to me as college students that they're looking for internships, they're asking for time to talk about biotech, about research, sometimes about the beauty industry, and I admire the courage that that takes to just drop somebody a message. I would be happy to talk with you about a variety of things. I really love helping people navigate things that were pitfalls for me. Let's help you jump over those from the beginning.
Mhm.
And so I'm very open to that. Sometimes I get personal emails, that's fine too. And if you can't find me there, I'm on Instagram. So feel free to just send me a DM there. I have connected with so many like-minded people who have motivation and the drive to get something done. And that's absolutely what you need. In addition to that adaptability, you're already on your way to becoming an entrepreneur. So I think for the right people who want to be supportive of you, like myself, we are really excited to get those kinds of messages.
Yeah, I totally agree. We want to give back. We want to help the next generation. So you got to reach out. I think that's the big message that Michael is trying to, convey to you is you have to reach out and ask for assistance or mentorship or whatever it is that you need. Perfect case in point is one of our speakers, Dr. Louis Profeta, recently came back from speaking at Clemson University talking about alcohol and drug abuse prevention from an ER doctor's perspective. And one of the students 6 months later who saw him, at Clemson said that, hey, I'm a pre-med student and I would love to shadow you in the ER in Indianapolis, even though she's in Clemson, right? Clear across the country. And he said yes, because she asked. Like, but you have to ask for
Yes.
that opportunity. And she did, and she is the big winner because here she is going into a level 1 trauma center ER to shadow I think one of the best ER doctors in the country. Certainly one of the most famous ones based on his writings.
I believe
So good for her for asking, but you got to ask.
truly.
And so reach out to Michael and Morrison. It's spelled Michael Morrison. Look her up on LinkedIn, look her up on Instagram, and she would be glad to connect with you and point you in the right direction. And I know she's open for some speaking opportunities as well. So please reach out to her and have those conversations. But you got to reach out and you got to ask for what you want. I really appreciate all of your time here, sharing all this great information with our listeners today. So thank you so much, Michael, for sharing this great stuff with us today.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure.
Of course. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students. I know there's plenty of entrepreneurs that need to hear this information on your college campus. So share it. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.